Good evening everybody and welcome to the video. In my last session essentially I covered theory for DynamoDB. This is a hands-on lab for DynamoDB. So essentially we'll be learning about CRUD operation, insert, delete, update. So we'll create a table using a library called PynamoDB, right? I'll also refresh your memory a little bit on the theory side. And then I have a beautiful lab, as you can see. Hopefully it will be very useful for people who are trying to learn DynamoDB, okay? So a very quick refresher in the video, we essentially said, Dynamo has string, numbers, binary, boolean, sets, hash map. These are the types it supports, right? We know that, we learned that. We also know that a single row cannot exceed more than 400 kilobytes. We studied that. Two type of scaling options available, provisional and on-demand. Remember, provisional is where you specify RCUs and WCUs. One RCU essentially is 4 kilobyte, one WCU is 1 kilobyte, right? So essentially that. So when you know your capacity, you can use the provisional, right? And always, if you read 17 kilobyte, it's gonna round up to 5 RCUs. Remember that. Now, on the other hand, we have a on-demand, which means automatically Dynamo will scale. It's used for sporadic traffic, which means unusual bursty traffic. Dynamo has two types of keys, partition and sort key, right? Just refreshing, and then we'll go to the labs, okay? So two types of keys, partition and sort key. Partition key helps you to identify a item uniquely, right? Every table has to have a partition key, also called as hash key, right? So that's very important. Sort key essentially filter down your result when you select via partition key, right? A combination of partition and sort key has to be unique, right? Based on what you have learned. Scan queries are expensive. You don't want to use scan queries, right? So these are all the things we have learned, right? And of course, we have learned about eventual consistency and strong consistency. So all that we have done, right? So now what we're going to do is do a lab. We're going to use a library called PynamoDB. If you want to go to the tutorials, here are the links, okay? PynamoDB is a Pythonic interface for Amazon DynamoDB by using simple yet powerful abstraction over DynamoDB API. So, it's very easy, right? So you can put your access and secret key here. I'm going to delete that after the video, so not to worry. You can install by using a simple pip command, a very popular library. So I'm essentially showing you a very simple example where I have a table called new table. I would have email, first name and last name. My last name is the partition key, which is essentially, if you go back to the slides right here, quickly, where is that? Partition key, yeah. So this is gonna be my partition key, my last name, and my sort key is gonna be my first name. I'm just showing you an example here, right, of partition and sort key. And I have a column called email, very simple for an example, right? So the way it works is essentially you define all the fields that you have in Dynamo as essentially items here, right? So you could define that in the class. You could define in the meta class essentially the table name, access, secret key, which region the Dynamo has to be in, right? All that you could do that. So as you can see, I'm gonna run this class, and then as we have studied from the essentially here, we know that there are two options of scaling. That is, sorry for the noise. So we have two options for scaling, that is provisional and on-demand, right? So now when you want to create table, you need to specify, right? Which one do you want to use? Provision, where you specify WCUs and RCUs. So you know what capacity you're going to use, right? When you say pay per request, that is nothing but essentially on-demand. You pay per request, right? So now, you know what? Let's create a table. I'm going to go to my tables. I'm going to try to delete this one so that I can show you before this. Okay, let's do, yeah, I gotta, all right, it's fine. So now let's define a new table, and I'm just gonna run it. I think it's from my Jupyter notebook, has not been refreshed. So I'll call it a fresh one. So I'll say YouTube. Let's call it YouTube Tutes, okay? So this is my table that I wanna create, right? So very easy. Then I'm specifying my WCUs and RCUs. So now if I head over back to my DynamoDB, here you can see a YouTube Tute table has been created. Here you can see my partition key is last name, my sort key is first name. Combination of partition and sort key has to be unique based on DynamoDB's documentation, okay? We have not covered indexes. We're gonna do that in the next part, okay? So I did create a table. Now, in order to insert that, so the class that you created, you will pass the item to the constructor. So in this case, I'm saying email, first name, last name. I'm passing in the values and I'm calling .save on that. This will, when you call .save, it's gonna insert the item to DynamoDB. So as you can see, it provides a very clean and nice interface, right? So I'm coming back here, refreshing my screen, heading over here, clicking on explore. And sure enough, we have that, right? This is my partition, this is my sort key, and then I have an email. Now you could also insert item, and I just want to show you the speed of DynamoDB, right? Very fast. So all I'm doing is I'm creating a datetime object. I'm creating a datetime object after inserting. I'm calculating the millisecond that it took, right? So I'm gonna insert a lot of items. As you can see, roughly 30 millisecond on average, it took 31 millisecond, extremely fast, right? You could also do a batch insert, which means I can create a user model, right? That's my class name. I'm passing in all the arguments to the constructor, and I'm essentially creating a list of objects. Remember, we defined our class on the top, which essentially sort of has a schema, email, first name, last name. It knows what it has, right? Then what I'm doing is I'm creating instance of my classes, right? And I'm storing it in the array called bulk items, remember? So once that is done, then in order to do a bulk insert, what you can do, you can create, this is called a context manager in Python. Not sure if you have used that. So essentially user model.batch, right, as batch, right? Then I say for items in bulk items. So for all the objects that I have, then I just have to call batch.save. That's all. And then I have to pass in the item. This will, insert all my items to DynamoDB, right? You could do that. Now let's talk about queries, right? So remember, here I'm querying with my partition key, heading over back to my DynamoDB. If I refresh, I should see all my data, right? So of course, here I wanna, let's say, get item based on my partition key or hash key. So I can simply call user model.query, and then you can provide your hash key. And here you can see I get Brian's Simpson at gloves.com, whatever. Now here is an example where I want to do a little bit more, right? So I'm saying, give me the item which with the hash key call, let's do Cooper again, and their first name starts with M. So we are now, so I think the first name was C, right? So we'll do this. So now I'll show you a scenario. So of course I get a hit. Now if I go back to my presentation here, we are doing something like this. We're saying, hey, give me user ID 1, and then essentially give me items that is greater than. So essentially we are sorting it after. So we are doing filtering after we get the data from the hash key, right? So you could do that. Now heading back to my presentation. So you could query partition key, you could query partition and then sort, then essentially filter by sort key. You could do that as well. Scans are also supported, which means we talked about that, right? We don't want to use scan because it scan entire column, which is expensive. You want to avoid scan. So I could, if I wanted to query a column called email, I can easily do that. Use a user model.scan, and then I can say my email that starts with the letter J. Not sure if there's something, but yeah, I got 2 results here. You could provide a limit operator, right? So PynamoDB is a very neat interface, right? You could easily update things. So for example, I can say user model.query. So let's do the same thing. Let's query my partition key with Cooper, and then I'm gonna change the email address. So I will call .save method. I'll have to specify Cooper here. And as you can see, the email address has been changed for Cooper. I'll come to DynamoDB and show you as well. I'll leave the links also, so don't worry. So as you can see, updating things are a piece of cake for me. Deleting item, again, very easy. You query the items based on partition key, and then you can call .delete on that, right? You could do the same thing with, you could provide multiple arguments. So for example, you could say, hey, give me all the items with user ID 1 and timestamp greater than 2000, then call .delete method on that. So you could do all sort of that, right? So here in this case, I'm gonna delete the item. As you can see, query and then delete. So if I go back, this Cooper should be gone when I refresh. And sure enough, it's gone. Deleting table is also again very easy. You call delete tables, you get the response back, and your table has been deleted, right? I know I was a little bit fast on the tutorial because LinkedIn only allows me to upload tutorial length of 10 minutes or 13 minutes, which is why I went a bit fast. I do understand. But with that being said, I am going to link the blog or the code snippets on my blog section. So if you wanted to learn more, you can definitely go to the links. Okay, see what he's doing. Oh, he's using this. Oh, he's using that, right? You could definitely do that. And if you are an enthusiast and if you want to learn more and more, right? So always PynamoDB, PynamoDB, you can come here and of course feel free to explore by yourself, right? There is, for example, batch operations, batch get items, batch update items, deleting query filters. There's also pagination, I believe. The next session, I'll try to show you GSI and LSI. We'll set up a GSI, we'll set up an LSI. So first we'll do LSI, local secondary index, and then we'll set up GSI. So LSI will help us to have a different sort key. GSI, on the other hand, will help you to have a different partition key and a sort key. GSI copies the data to a new table, remember that, okay? But more to in the next tutorial, okay? Not in this video. Well, once again, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have enjoyed it. If you did enjoy, a simple like would be appreciated. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next session where we explore more about Dynamo, GSI, LSI, then we learn about DAX and much more. Thank you so much for watching.